All right, here we are. It's Lit Book Reviews. Here again.
Yes, once again.
So let's before we get into the books for today, let's get into a little personal info.
Well, you and I.
A little you and I. Let's talk about ourselves. How did we get
play
here?
20 questions.
I don't know about 20. But okay, so Andrew and I'm Jesse. This is Andrew, otherwise known as Cillian Murphy and Matt Damon. We've known each other. When did we meet? How old were we? I'm a year older than you, so we're practically the same age, right?
What, you're not? You're 30?
I'm not. I'm 28. Chill out.
So I'm 26. I'll turn 27 in December. So, I mean, yeah, you're a little over a year. But, I mean, who knows, dude?
I mean, it was a long time ago.
I don't know if, I have the concept of time to remember. Because we were...
I mean, it was elementary
through
school.
Church, for sure.
Yeah, it was through church and school. So Andrew and I grew up in the same town, went to the same school some throughout our school careers, throughout elementary, middle, and high school. Went to the same church. Our dads were like best buddies when they were our age, lived together for a time. So it's a lot of rich history there.
Your dad was the best man at my dad's wedding.
Yeah, which is wild, although your dad was not the best man.
He didn't get invited.
He didn't get invited.
My dad told me he didn't get invited. He said, though, that Tim called him, though, and, let him know, because it was, a small thing.
He was like,
yeah.
You're not making the cut.
I don't know if he had groomsmen. You need to fact check him. He has brothers, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it was just his brothers.
Yeah. I honestly can't remember.
But yeah.
Not that I was there. I
remember him telling me. He didn't even get invited. But, yeah, obviously he was yeah. They got plenty of stories.
So
go way back. It's
way
in
back.
our blood.
It's in our blood to be boys. Have been ever since. So to fast forward a little bit to the future, you went to college up in South Carolina,
Yeah.
And then you were a history teacher abroad. Tell me a little bit about that.
I was. So Jesse knows this, but I graduated from an international school in Kuwait.
High school.
Yeah, high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my parents taught there. That's why we moved there. And so anyway, I had that connection from before. And this past year, I taught 8th grade there. So I taught 8th grade U.S. history. So I'm actually a certified teacher, which we probably dropped the ball on some historical facts. And people are probably looking to revoke my license. But I have passed the practice exam for historical content. So anyway, so I'm 9 through 12 certified. All social studies ed. But last year taught 8th grade. Previous year I taught 11th and 12th grade. But anyway, it was all right. It was cool. It was good to go back and be there. More of the traveling is what's fun, which we've talked about a lot. But yeah, it was tough being over there. The culture's completely different, obviously, than here. And I mean, I'd already known it from before, so it was good to
appreciate that rush.
It was good to see some of my old buddies, but and to have a chance to actually go back, because Kuwait's not one of those places that you're gonna go travel to. So, but dude, I wouldn't trade it for the world, especially my perspective, because dude, so we're both from Henry County, and it's just so tough to get out, man.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I left when I was 16 to go over there, I mean, it changed everything for me, because I'd never left. I think I'd been on a cruise before, but as far as traveling outside, dude, my world was so small.
Mm-hmm.
Just my concept of the world was tiny. So moving out there, really obviously just forced me to see oh wait, the world's way bigger than just America. But at the same time, it helped me appreciate America even more. So it's that weird dichotomy of I want to travel more and see all these new and interesting cultures and learn more, but at the same time it reaffirms, which I guess it's somehow controversial now, but America is the greatest country in the world. And it's not even close. I mean, there's other places, that's not me saying there's not places I don't want to go to, because obviously there's so many, and I'd like to go.
And that's
and
not
live.
You saying that America's not flawed.
Oh yeah, exactly.
It's
still majorly flawed, but we're willing to have discussions here that you can't even have
right
in other countries. But then also, I mean, I still want to live in other countries, but as far as long term, I mean, I'm still USA guy all the way. But no, I loved being able to travel while I was over there.
Yeah. So
I'm glad to be back.
yeah, so that kind of segues into. I mean, you've traveled all over the place. My travels have been pretty limited as far as outside the country. I've been on a few trips to Honduras.
Been to Spain, right?
And then Spain. I spent a week there when a good friend of mine and his wife lived there for a year. Other than that, I've been to some places domestically, but that's like the limit of my international traveling. And it did definitely, especially Honduras, because I was younger and I went there 3 times on mission trips
Yeah.
to do like some back-breaking work. So that definitely
That's
had
not
that effect of
vacation.
like kind of opening my eyes and like giving me more perspective. And then Spain definitely did as well.
Oh,
I
dude,
loved
you went to
Spain.
Barcelona, right?
Yeah, I was in Barcelona.
Oh, dude, Barcelona's amazing.
And we went to
we could
Girona
live there
as well. Oh,
I
yeah.
haven't been there. Oh, dude, it's amazing. There.
Amazing. But that's kind of my experience with international travel. You've been to a ton of places, so we won't go over all of them. But I mean, when I ask you your top 3 places you visited, what comes into mind?
So
Do that into the mic a little more.
Dude, I'm a sucker for European history, so like I really do appreciate that a lot. But dude, Thailand's probably the favorite place I've ever been.
Really nice.
The vacation that we went on there was amazing when I was in high school. I've been there twice, but there's just so much to do there. The culture's really rich. I don't really know that much about like the history of Thailand, to be honest, but it's really cheap there. You can do so much. Like we rode elephants, played with tigers. Like it was great. The beaches are phenomenal. Food's really good. So that's probably my one, like as far as favorite vacation I've been on. Dude, when I went to Greece this past year was amazing. Salzburg was amazing. Those are like the ones I went to recently. So like I
Yeah.
loved Austria. I've always liked Paris, so like I'd have to throw that in there. Because dude, I was gonna live in France like this summer. I remember talking to you about like staying
Yeah.
there for a month because I really just wanted to like learn French.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like really fascinated by French culture too. But yeah, I mean, probably anywhere in like I love Paris. I liked Greece. I like Thailand. But anywhere in Europe, dude, it's just like the history, man. It's just, I mean, like you probably saw in Barcelona. Like Barcelona's honestly up there. I've been there twice now.
Yeah.
And dude, I could live like there's not a lot of places that I've been where it's like I would like to live here for like a couple years. Barcelona is definitely one of those places where it's like, dude, I could easily live here.
Yeah.
Easily. Everything's cheap, but it's cool. There's so
Right.
much to do. Everyone's kind of active there. I don't know. It just seems like a place where like a lot of youthful people live.
Yeah.
And I didn't get like a lot of sketchy vibes there at all either. Like I never felt
Right.
unsafe.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, Portugal. I got to throw Portugal
I was thinking
in
of
there,
Portugal,
dude.
yeah.
We got to go to Portugal, dude.
Yeah, I would
it's
love
so
to.
it's like it's basically. I mean, it's very similar to Spain. Very like similar culture, but they have like all this cool tile work everywhere. When I went to Lisbon, but anyway, dude, we got to take a Germany trip though. I haven't been to Germany. I've been in the airport and I like got out in Frankfurt a little bit, and then I've taken a train through Germany. But as far as like really do Germany, I've been talking to Lexi about it, and bro,
Yeah.
once we get 3,100 million subscribers, and you guys can just go ahead and pay for us to go there, dude, we got to take like
I'm down.
a road trip tour. We can like go and see the sites.
I'm down for sure. I will say if I could go anywhere right now, not even just from your list, but just in general, even though it is on your list of places you've been, Vienna, Austria is the
Vienna was great.
number
I was
one
only there
place
for like
I want to
24
go.
hours, so like I didn't even really get to go. It was just we were there because we were gonna go to Salzburg. You
Yeah.
would love Salzburg. Speaking of Salzburg, this little Mozart just
From
added to
Salzburg.
the set. Yeah, from his house, dude.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Dude, it's so cool there.
Yeah.
But all the buildings are just old. Like, it's just the vibes you get there. Like, it's just history.
Well, that's-
Whereas
yeah.
we just don't have that here.
Yeah.
You know?
That's how it was in Barcelona for me, man. I remember walking around with Jake and Sky, and I was just taking pictures of like everything we saw.
yeah.
And they had been there for 8 months already, and Jake was like, "Dude, what are you taking pictures of?" And I was like, "Bro, I know you've gotten a little used to this,
Just the street.
but this is not what it looks like where I'm from. I don't know if you remember America, but there's nothing this old.
Yeah.
And this like architecturally fascinating. I mean, I
Especially
went to
in
that huge
Barcelona.
chapel that's there.
Oh, Sagrada Familia?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you take a tour inside?
Dude, yes, and it's the one time in my life that I can remember. I'm sure there's been other times. It's the one time in my life that I can remember. It's a cliche thing. You hear it all the time. When I walked in the door and got into the chapel, it literally took my breath away.
Oh,
I was
it's
like,
it's so much bigger
I mean, it was,
inside.
yeah, dude. And even the outside, dude, all the little
The
details,
styles.
man. It's just,
Dude,
it's so cool.
You got to have a tour guide for that one too, just because there's so many things that you would just. I mean, there's so many things with the tour.
Yeah,
guide
I
I'm
didn't
sure
even
you're
have
missing.
one.
Oh,
Yeah.
you didn't have one?
No, I walked around in there for like 4.5 hours.
Oh, really? Oh, so you
Yeah.
probably got a good look. But dude, we took a tour, and bro, Will was down bad at this point. Like this was after a night of like going out for a while, and dude, I like forced him to go, but dude, it was just so like there's just so much symbolism in like all that art that's and how it's in all the different styles too. Like each
Yeah.
side's a different style, and like each of the temple or like each of the I mean I'm butchering it, but like each of the little points is like everything represents something.
Yeah, it all has meaning, and it all has so much work went into every square inch of that building.
Yeah.
And they're still working. I don't know if they're done yet, but I know when I was there, they're still.
Yeah, bro.
I mean, they've been working on it for like.
Because dude, it
since
only the
dawn
only
of
way they get
time.
funding is from donations.
And
I remember. So like, it's not even like tax dollars.
I know I'm not donating, so good luck.
Dude, I'll put a picture up of it. Dude, I got this like drawing of it. Dude, it's so sick. I need to put. I have like a bunch of. I try to get a bunch of like pencil drawings like wherever I went, like a little like not big ones, but just like this big.
Yeah.
And I got a super sick one of the Sagrada Familia. But anyway, like even just that. So the guy who built that, did you go to that park there? We went and it was closed, but it's like like that style that he has where it's like it's a very specific style, and that guy was from Barcelona. I should know the guy's
okay.
name. I'll put his name up.
Yeah,
in
I
the
can't
video.
remember.
But
yeah,
like
and
it was
then-
those wavy buildings. It's just that
Yeah.
style.
And then Girona that I mentioned, we took a train to Girona from Barcelona one of the days, and Girona's really cool. It's similar in that it's got really old stuff. But if you're a Game of Thrones, the show fan, you may remember the scene where Cersei Lannister is walked down those big steps and made to go through the city while they say shame, shame. She's butt naked. Crazy, wild scene. Way too long of a scene. Really drags on. But those huge steps in that building that she walks of is in Girona, Spain. So I got to, and I mean, it's, yeah, I took some pictures. I'll get them to you. So yeah, okay. So international travels. You're a teacher. One more question I want to ask about being a teacher. I'm sure the answer is pretty simple. What landed you on teaching history internationally?
So my dad teaches history. So both of our dads are huge history buffs. Know way more about history than probably we ever will. But
Yeah.
anyway, so I mean, I grew up in that mindset, like of just both my parents being teachers. So I always liked school, and then that kind of came along with it, I guess. Just always talked to my dad about history, and I think I just had good history teachers in high school too.
Yeah.
That made it less about like memorize this date and more about like people and like just how people are complex and like kind of learning about the complexities of it. I mean, just same reason why we like reading and like why you like reading nonfiction. I mean, it's just people are just so fascinating, and the decisions that people make is just crazy. So that's how I've always viewed history. I mean, I think a lot of people, they get bad history teachers, and it's just like if you don't memorize these dates, it's just facts to them. They don't. It's really hard for them to apply it to their own lives.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like I've always like been able to either like sympathize or like gain wisdom in some way from it. So I've like kind of always seen it as that. But then also, dude, it's just like this happened. So like it's relevant to me to know just because it is real.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people don't care, but they should.
Yeah.
Especially about U.S. history, dude.
Yeah. I mean, if you're American, yeah.
Oh, and dude, I mean, just those man on the street videos, like it's just people don't know anything about or even our own country, bro.
Yeah.
Which that's a whole nother conversation for a whole other day. But anyway.
Okay, I think, last question I'll ask you is, so we're both, to preface this question, me for about 3 years now, you can answer how long for you.
Yeah, I need to look on my Goodreads and see.
We've both like really hit this phase of like reading being our main hobby, in the last few years, which is why we're doing this, but it's also why you may find that some stuff we get wrong, some stuff we aren't fully sure about. Because I see myself as like a baby in the reading world, especially in nonfiction, in any kind of reading, and I think that probably grows because the more you read, the more you realize that you don't know.
Dude, yeah.
But talk to me a little bit about what got you kind of into this hard reading phase.
So like again, both my parents are teachers, so like I was forced to read as a kid a lot, and then I kind of just grew to like it, and that was definitely my best academic skill set was like reading comprehension. So, like, I was always, like, never afraid to read out loud in class or things like that. So, it was something that I was good at, so I probably, like, took pride in that, I would say. And then, I don't know if they had this at Elka, but, bro, AR, Accelerated Reading, did you guys have that? Dude, that was, like, I lived and died by AR, bro. It was all about, like, them making it a competition. I don't even know if they still do that these days. I feel like they don't because of technology. You can probably just cheat.
Right.
But dude, it was so motivating to me because I'm so competitive, and so like adding in reading with like, oh, if you get a certain score on this, you get points, and if you like whoever has the most points at the end of the year gets this prize. Like, I was all in, dude. So I was even on. I don't know if we've talked about this or not. I was on a reading bowl team, which just sounds so. But dude, it was lit. And so essentially, like, there was a list of like 25 books that your team would read, and you'd pick like 2 people to go, and you'd have like a buzzer, and it's like question style, like trivia style, where they're asking questions from the different book, like from any of the books, and you know, you're just buzzing in and answering, and you're going against different schools. And so like I did that too. So I mean, I've always loved reading, but then like playing sports in college and like just other things, like I stopped reading probably for fun. I would say probably in like late middle school, like high school, like when you really started to have to read for school, and then that kind of like, I mean, you know how that is. Like, you're reading a book like now that we would enjoy, but back then, because you're being forced to read it, it's just not the same.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't really read much at all. I'd read like maybe 2 or 3 books a year, up until, I guess, 2021. I started working at Luxottica, and I started audiobooking a lot because like I was working in the prescription lab, and so we're just like walking around like doing nothing, or not doing nothing, but like we're not having to talk to people, so it's like monotonous things. So that's when I started audiobooking a lot, and then that really got me back into reading again. And so then, I mean, you were already reading, I think, at that point in time. So then I think you're the one who told me about Goodreads, and so it was at the very end of 2021 that I got Goodreads, and then that like made it a whole nother thing for me, like the whole competition of like, oh, I can log my books and set a goal and like actively see, because I'm just so goal oriented. If I can see like progress, like even if it's slow, like happening, it just helps me stay motivated. So 2022, so last year was like the year I really like took off. So I mean, I read 51 books last year, and I mean, I dove deep into fantasy, man, deep into BookTube, and I guess just like through watching all that, it's like, dude, and talking with you, man, I'm like, this is fun. I'm reading all these books, and there's just not a lot of people making like content about these books, and you know, we're going to talk about it anyway, so we might as well record it. But yeah, so I would say the last 2 years I've been like really reading, and like reading books where like, dude, I would have never read The Words of Radiance.
Right, yeah. Or,
you know, The Way of Kings, or any of these books that are like 1,300 pages. I mean, dude, never in a million years would I have read those books, but, you know, it's a slow progress to where, dude, that's nothing, dude. I'm like, more. Give me more.
Yeah, more.
So I would say my reading stamina now, dude. I mean, we've talked about this before, too. I don't really get tired of reading. I'm not a very fast reader. You're a way faster reader than I am. I just don't get bored of reading. I don't, like, lose focus, whereas in the beginning I did, but, you know, just from like consistently forcing myself to read and setting that goal to achieve 50 books last year.
Yeah.
I mean, now I just, however much time I have, like, it's basically I can read until like I have to do something else, which I know you're like that too.
Right.
But anyway, so I know to wrap that up, like, obviously I love reading, and fantasy is I think we've talked about that on a previous video, but I'll read nonfiction every now and then, but Jesse's way more into that, which I'm sure we'll talk about too. But I'm more into, dude, I just love fantasy, man. I can't get enough of it. I mean, obviously I don't get I will say, like, I understand why you like reading nonfiction, because when I do read the few nonfiction books I do, I get that same enjoyment that I get from finishing a book and like putting a number on the Goodreads thing. But then at the same time, I'm like, oh, like I know something that's real.
Right.
And then especially like, I can only imagine, like, especially with the few Russian history books I've read, like once that kind of information kind of starts to stack, it's like, ooh, like I feel like I'm really kind of getting a wheel going here that could really like treadmill into me like knowing a ton of information. Right. Whereas obviously in fantasy, dude, it's just not like that. It's pure enjoyment.
Right.
So pure stress reliever for me. Just absolutely leaving this world.
Yeah.
And going into another one.
Yeah.
On purpose.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's really interesting that you have a background in history.
Yeah.
And you love fantasy, because it's really nice, because I love reading nonfiction so much. So, I mean, a lot of these books I read, I'll talk to you about them. You're like, oh, yeah, that's that. Like, not to bring it up, but the Philadelphia Massacre.
Yeah. I will say, dude, especially the past 2 years.
By the way.
The past 2 years teaching, you would love, dude. Teaching sucks. Like, teachers don't get paid enough, man, especially nowadays. Kids are so disrespectful. Like, there are moments where it's so rewarding, for sure. And, like, but as far as like having to learn the material again and well enough to teach it to a class, dude, I loved that. Like, because it was like reading, but like on a whole nother level. So like the past 2 years getting to do that, especially because I taught U.S. history both years, so like it was the same content I got to review twice. I just feel like I learned so much, man. Just teaching again this past year. So it's gonna be sad not teaching this year, but dude, you would be so good at it and you would love it because it's just all the nuances. But it would piss you off when kids just don't care.
Yeah, see, that's the breaking point for me. Like if I was talking to a group of people that were so eager to learn what I wanted to talk about, I'm game. But that's not how it is. So,
not even a little bit. Because dude, even us, people who are interested in that now, like, I know how I was in high school.
Yeah, I mean,
I was someone who made all A's. So like, and I still was not like. I mean, I wasn't not engaged, but it was just like doing whatever it takes to get by.
Yeah, and for me, like the history classes that I remember from the high school that I graduated from, not Elka that we went to together, but the public school I graduated from, like it just, and I think the point you made is very important. Like the teachers that I remember having, my history teachers, like some of them were good, but then some of them just, like you could tell they were so tired of their jobs. And it was just regurgitating information to where there was just no engagement. It was never exciting. I had one teacher that taught 2 AP classes I did, AP Gov and AP US, I think. He was super into it, and that class was super engaging.
Yeah.
But even still, I was kind of a punk. Like I did well in the class, but like it just wasn't as important to me. So yeah, I can only imagine. I do think parts of teaching I would probably enjoy, and then other parts I would hate. But such is life.
So what got you into reading? How did you find Goodreads?
So Goodreads, I believe, was something that Jake told me about. Jake's someone that I think I've mentioned in videos before. One of my close friends I also grew up with. Big reader, super smart guy. And so I think he told me about the app. But as far as getting into reading, I was kind of similar to you. You probably read more than I did consistently in the younger years. But I did like reading to a degree. But I definitely wasn't reading for a time. And then in February of 2020, I remember having a conversation with the person I mentioned, Jake, actually his older brother, Luke, which I hope they don't mind us using their names, but whatever. I'll put their social security on the screen.
Yeah.
Luke, his older brother, I went to his house in Atlanta. We were hanging out with some friends. I had this like kind of deep conversation about where I was in life and what I was trying to like change about myself and accomplish. And he recommended a book called Atomic Habits, a very popular book by James Clear. It's so good. And it wasn't about reading. He wasn't recommending it to me so that I would read more. It was just something he thought based on our conversation I would really, really enjoy, and I did. And it changed a lot of things in my life, but the biggest impact it had was I enjoyed reading the book so much that I was like, wait, I can love reading as an adult. Let me pick up something else. Yeah. And that year, that was the end of February 2020, I ended up getting on Goodreads, and from February to the end of the year, I read 68 books that year.
I mean, yeah, that's.
I mean, I went to town, and this was during COVID as well, so I mean, I was at home all the time and had no life during COVID, so it was a lot easier. I have not read that many books in a year since then.
Were they all nonfiction?
I won't this year. No. I read some some Star Wars stuff because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Grew up on it, so I read a lot of those books. But most of them were nonfiction. But some of them were terrible.
Did you start off reading mostly nonfiction, or did you start off reading some Star Wars stuff and then you're like, oh, I'll try this?
I kind of went back and forth because, as you mentioned, my dad was a huge history buff. So once I started getting into it, he was like, oh, you got to read this. He gave me some foundational stuff, and then I just kind of went from there on my own. And from that point, it's kind of once it really started opening up for me, it just became. And this is why I'm so hard on nonfiction most of the time. I just realized, oh, I love learning about things that I don't know anything about.
Yeah.
Because you read something that's real that you know nothing about, and it's just fascinating to know, like, man, there were these multitude of lives and events and societies that they lived and died and had some epic things happen, and they were real, man. These people were here, lived and died, breathed the same air, and I know nothing about it. So it was just fascinating, and I think...
See, that's why you would appreciate traveling probably even more so than I have, just because you actually, especially in certain places in Europe and whatnot, you probably have that foundational knowledge so that if you did have a guide or whatever, you probably wouldn't even need a guide for some stuff. I mean, you already know about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Like, because that's one thing that I guess that's probably why I haven't read as much, is because I have gotten that fix of just going and I've seen it.
Right.
And so it's real for me that way instead of me having to read about it. Because that makes sense of like
Yeah.
what you're saying of like, because that's why I like to travel, dude. Like, it's all about learning about things and seeing stuff that like I don't know anything about, especially cultures that are completely different.
Yeah.
So like the same whole reason though as reading, like that's the
Right.
whole reason why I like going, not for like some Instagram picture to flex on people. It's like, no, this actually happened. Like the Colosseum or like the Acropolis. When I went to the Acropolis, dude, it was just like, how'd they get this up here?
Yeah.
Like,
do
and
this?
it's just crazy, dude. That I mean, it was like it's so impressive now in 2023, bro. What did it look like
Right.
when there's nothing out here? There's no tall
Right.
buildings.
Right. Yeah, that is
So,
crazy.
Anyway, I mean, that's a total sidetrack, but yeah. Anyway, so
So,
but
yeah.
you started nonfiction, and then was it when did you more recently started reading fantasy? I mean, like dripping more fantasy in there. I know you said you're reading Star Wars, but
Yeah, so for a long time, basically the habit I got into was reading like 6, 7, 8 nonfiction books and then kind of taking a palate cleanser
Yeah.
with like a short little Star Wars book or like the novelization of one of the movies, like Revenge of the Sith, which, by the way, is a great, great book. Probably the best Star Wars book you can read is the novelization of Revenge of the Sith. I'm super biased, but so nonfiction, that's how I kind of got into that. And then fantasy, I mean, Dune was really the first series I really got into because I just heard so much about it. And
When did
for
you read Dune?
years,
you know.
the first one was 2020.
Oh, you read it before I did. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong then because I thought you did. Maybe it was 21.
Maybe I read it in 2020. That actually it was because I read that. I read Dune before I was on Goodreads. I remember that.
Okay, so
I
you
don't know
definitely
why
read
I
it
picked
before
Dune
me.
up.
Yeah, I can't really remember either,
I
but
think
then
I
I
watched
know
a
that.
video maybe of like because I love series and I
Right.
think I looked it up like what are like the most popular series of all time.
Yeah.
Just in general, I think Dune was on there. Maybe that was why I read it. I can't remember.
Yeah, and then, I mean,
is a
for
great
4 years, Jake has been telling me to read Brandon Sanderson.
Really?
Oh, for years.
See, I didn't even
dude.
know anything about him, dude, until I got like on BookTube, bro. And then obviously
Yeah.
he's everywhere on BookTube.
Well, that's why you tell him when you started reading it. That's why it was the tipping point for me because
Yeah.
Jake had been telling me forever, and I just wasn't thinking. I wasn't very fantasy centric, so I was just like, man, I'm sure it's good, but I'm not really into that. I don't know if I want to pick up a 1,200
Dude, it does
pager.
seem so stupid, bro, until you get into it. Like,
Oh,
fantasy
yeah.
seems like, bro, I'm not into that.
Well, especially for me, and
It's-
this isn't like a condescending because obviously at this point I love fantasy. It was never like a condescending like,
Just
oh
that's not
no, I
real.
like reading real stuff.
Yeah,
You know, it was never like that for me. It was just I was so into nonfiction that I was like, I don't know if I want to commit to that because it sounds like it's a big commitment.
Yeah. Oh, well, it is huge commitment. I
But
didn't
I'm
start
very
until
grateful
later
I
on.
finally did because I
Yeah.
love those books.
I
But,
can't wait for you to start with a Wheel of Time, dude. I've kind of gotten on another itch, bro, of Wheel of Time where I'll kind of want to restart it.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm 45 years old, I'll.
Dude, we got to read it way sooner.
I know
thinking,
we will.
oh, I need this water. Dude, next year we should do 2020. It's crazy things. We're 2023. 2024 should be the year of the Wheel of Time. We should read one Wheel of
I'm
Time
down.
book every month
All right, I'm down.
because we can
Let's
do it
get
a
it.
month.
Yeah.
Because by then, dude,
By then we're gonna have 18 billion followers.
18 million, dude. Mr. Beast, PewDiePie, we'll be passing all those guys.
All of them, dude.
'Cause so
And I
many
have the
people
plaques in
read.
here and everything. Because so many people love
Wait,
reading.
did you say the what?
Plaques. I
Oh.
said plaques. The YouTube plaques that you get when you hit certain milestones. So the other thing I'll say, just since we're kind of letting people know like who we are, the other thing about history that I do love so much is, you know, I mentioned there's just so many things to learn about that you just don't know from the get-go. But I think the biggest thing for me is just seeing the capacity of mankind. Like not just our accomplishments, like, you know, in science or in space or whatever, in war, but also just like the dark depths that we will go to. Like not even, I mean, obviously there's obvious examples like Hitler and Stalin or whatever, Mao,
Yeah.
all these different things, but
Rasputin.
just individuals like that are given a situation and they just do what they do. And, you know, you can sometimes judge, but the cool thing is when you have the perspective of the context of the situation they were in and you understand the culture, and especially if you can get into like the personal experiences of a figure, things just become so much more clear and you can genuinely say, man, I don't know what I would have done in that situation.
Dude, yeah.
Like, and frankly, and again, not to sound condescending, a lot of people who don't read are incapable of having that perspective.
Yeah.
Like incapable. And there's a lot of easy
They have no
examples I could.
empathy.
Yeah. Well, no empathy and just no ability to say like people. It's very hard for a person without perspective to accept the fact that they may have been wrong.
Yeah.
Like if they were handed a situation and didn't have the hindsight of history to look at it for the way we can look at it now. So yeah, it's just interesting to see the lengths that we will go, the capacity, good and bad, of men and women throughout history. So yeah, that's kind of my spiel on just reading in general, and just to kind of reiterate what you said, we've gotten to the point where we love talking about it so much that we were just like, I mean, why don't we just
dude, hours, especially
just
Stormlight
record.
is what did it.
Yeah, for
Reading
sure.
The Way of Kings and then convincing you to start it. I mean,
what is Rush doing, dude? I
he's,
swear
like,
he's about to
slowly
unplug
just-
my microphone.
is he actually?
I mean, I've got a bad feeling.
No, he's further. Well, I mean, he's close, but not.
We've
that
got a
far.
pit bull under the table if you can't see it.
No, but I mean, just because those books are so, and that's what I like about fantasy is, because I like fiction, dude, but like just normal fiction, but I can never get into it because anything that's set in a world that like I can already imagine, like Earth, essentially, it's just, unless if there's something really dynamic with characters or an author's just super engaging, bro, it's just not good for me. Like, my favorite part about fantasy is probably why a lot of people don't like fantasy is like the first part when you start a new series and you're like, dude, what is going on?
Right.
Where it's like you don't understand the rules of like how the world itself works. Like
Right.
someone's got these powers and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And like that's my favorite part about fantasy is like really having to take myself out of like Earth perspective and go into something that is completely new and be completely dependent on an author to paint this picture for me.
Right.
For me to imagine. And that's what I really like about it. Whereas like, you know, I think that's where my dad like struggles. I think he likes it, but you know, they are more the realistic, like I just want to know like
Right.
hard facts, which again I appreciate too, but
Sure.
I don't know. That's fantasy for me, dude, is just it's so engaging and I feel like it almost works your mind in a different way than like reading
Yeah.
other things does, because you do have to really comprehend things and then really like use foresight and like just different levels of perspective.
When you're using your imagination way more. When I'm reading a book about Ulysses S. Grant, if I don't understand something they're referring to, I can Google it and find a million different quotes, perspectives, whatever, on this event or thing that I'm reading about. Whereas in fantasy, especially something like Sanderson, like sure there's art and there's like fan stuff you can look at, but for the most part you're just having to build it in your mind. So that I agree, it's kind of like working out a different muscle group.
Yeah.
To
And that's why
in a
adaptations
sense.
are always just never as good enough, because in your own mind
yeah.
you're already building something.
They're
that-
never as good.
unless if you go out and be Steven Spielberg, like it's never gonna look how you want to look, like you want it to look. And that's why I kind of wrote off the Wheel of Time show, dude, because it just didn't match how I envisioned everything going.
Well, I
in the
think
first
everybody who read the books agreed with you.
Well, so
'Cause I've
I-
not heard
yeah.
a single person say something
Dude,
good
but I
about
watched
that
the
show.
trailer for the second season, dude, and I got hype. And that was why I was like, because, you know, when you read a book and, like, you invest so much time, especially in a world like that Robert Jordan, like, creates, dude, it's so in-depth, man.
Right.
It's just so cool to see, like, it come to life and them to, like, do dramatic things, because there's just so many cool things that happen in that series. So, it just got me hype again. I'm like, dude, maybe I need to give it another chance. So,
Yeah.
I've watched the first 2 episodes again, and, like, it is better than I thought. I mean, there's things that they obviously changed, but I got to be better at like having a perspective of like they can change things.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not for the better, but it's still not terrible. Because I'm immediately like, oh,
Yeah.
they changed this one thing. This one character's married and he wasn't married, and the other one, I'm
Yeah.
out. And it's like
Yeah. See,
I
and-
got to be reasonable.
right, and I've not read The Wheel of Time or watched the show, so I have no reference point for it. But
I've
what I
heard it's
can
not-
say
the
about
CGI is not great.
what I can say about bad adaptations is The Rings of Power.
God.
And I hope I'm not writing anybody off this show, but if you liked that show,
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
you need to work
thumbs
on
this
your
button
taste.
down so
Yeah.
we can know how you are.
Yeah. That is the
God.
worst show I've ever seen in my entire. Even if I didn't read the Silmarillion and all the stuff that it's based on, which it's not, by the way, even if I hadn't read it, that was a horrible show.
Yeah, I didn't
Absolute dog.
I didn't
was
even
that
get
show.
through the first episode. I fell asleep twice, and then I tried to rewatch it again, and then I turned it off. Like
I
was
watched all
almost
of it.
done.
I kept giving it a chance. And don't get me wrong, there were moments that were visually pleasing. There were moments that were good. Rush, get out from underneath us
Back.
right now. Get out. Oh my God.
He's sad.
Um,
Rush.
Dude, don't come back over here. Rush.
No, Rush.
You can sit right here. Sit. Okay, you stay right there. Anyway, we don't need to talk more about that. So,
Wait, so
that's-
what do you do now? Hard pivot.
What do I what?
So what's your job now before you quit it and we do this full time?
I'm a home inspector, so I inspect houses for people when they're buying or selling them, tell them what's wrong, what's right, that kind of thing. I really like my job. I get to meet new people. I travel all over the state, essentially. Getting in nasty crawl spaces is not fun, but other than that, it's a pretty enjoyable job. It's not fun being out in this Georgia heat right now. Next week, by the way, it's supposed to hit 103 degrees, and that's not the heat index. That is the actual temperature for, I believe, Tuesday of next week. So yeah, that's what I do for a living. Before this, my main hobby was music, as you know.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to give your boy a holler on Apple Music or Spotify, Subtle Jones is our band. We don't really do anything now. We're hoping to, do some things here and there in the future, but we went pretty hard for about 5-6 years. COVID was tough, took away a lot of momentum.
I feel like,
yeah, we played at the Braves games a few times and some pretty cool venues in Atlanta, traveled to a couple other states, but no matter what happens in the future, even if I never play live again, I'm very proud of what we did and the stuff we put out.
Yeah.
And we definitely gave it a hardcore effort. I really don't know at this point in my life if I would even want that lifestyle. Like I would want to tour around or I love music. I love making music. I love playing it, but
I shouldn't have said.
No, that's no, you're referring to the other day. That's funny.
Is that what he said? What was it?
He's like, see, he don't love it like he used to. Yeah. And he kind of was right about the actually playing in front of people. It's just kind of got my fill of it. I definitely do it again. I think we will play shows at some point, but either way, this hobby has kind of taken over that. I still have all my stuff. I still record a bit here and there and play every day.
It is easier to do as far as like the logistics of it. Like we just have to come here.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys were having to toss a lot of.
Oh, dude. I mean, sacrifice after compromise after sacrifice.
Yeah.
I mean, just hours and hours and hours of rehearsals and then a full day of just bringing equipment up to Atlanta in 3 different cars and unloading it.
Dude, with all the stuff you guys have to do with recording and all that.
So expensive. And let me tell you, dude, we'd have a show, have 200 people show up, just fill up an entire room in Atlanta, and I'd walk out of there with $28 in my pocket. So, like, it's an absolute grind. But anyway, yeah, Subtle Jones is our band name. We've got a few songs out on the Ethernet, so check it out if you want, and let me know what you think in the comments. I think that's kind of it for who we are. We just thought it'd be a good idea, like, for people to actually know a bit about us, so there might be a little more interest in what we have to say. But I think a big thing to definitely continue to say, and I don't know how much you would agree with this, but I feel like it's important, especially like with nonfiction that I will be talking about a lot on this channel. Like, I am by no means a very educated person on this stuff. What I said is true. I read books about things that I know almost nothing about. There's certainly things that I read a lot of different books about, but I may as well know nothing each time I go into it because you learn just so much more. So there's going to be a lot of times. I mean, our first episode about John Adams, I made a blunder that I will never, ever forgive myself for.
Society.
And that's going to happen a lot. I'm going to get things wrong. My interpretations of things will be wrong, I'm sure, all the time. But that's kind of the fun of this, is just like being honest about what we've learned, what we've grasped, and what we totally got wrong. And hopefully we can correct each other on some of that. Hopefully you guys can help with that, make good recommendations for us to learn more.
And I'm the same way, dude. When I watch some people on BookTube, I just don't use the same literary language to analyze the text and all that sort of thing.
Like, I don't even know what the word prose means, if I'm being honest. I couldn't define it for you right now.
I think I know what it means, but yeah, I don't know. And
I'm
so
an idiot.
it's just, I just like reading, dude. And so like, I just want to talk about books that I like reading. And then there's books that I hate reading, like A Darker Shade of Magic, which is the worst piece of literature I've ever read.
Again.
And the thing is, I can't give you like literary reasons why.
Yeah,
you just
didn't
dude.
enjoy it.
It was bad. And so, that's where I'm at, and that's the hill I'm willing to die on. And so, but the thing is I guess like to piggyback off what you said too. Yeah, I mean, we don't know anything. We just have opinions about books that we read, and sometimes we can't even back those opinions up. It's just how it is.
Yeah, we're just normal
Yeah.
douchebags just trying to make our way in this world.
Especially once we get deep into Stormlight, we're going to need everybody's help.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, you're definitely going to need everybody's help.
come on, man.
But Yeah, I guess if there's any other information we could give, we're in the southeast of the United States of America. We're in Atlanta, Georgia-ish. Everybody in Georgia within 600 miles of Atlanta says they're from Atlanta, and they're not. And we aren't either, but we're close enough. We're about a 20-minute drive from the perimeter of Atlanta. But and we've been here our whole lives to a degree. Obviously, you've lived in other states for school and other countries for work and that kind of thing. I've been living in about a 50-mile radius of where I was born for 28 years. So
for a quarter of a century.
Yeah, I mean, just absolutely living.
That pause, dude. You just like...
So yeah, I think that's us. I don't know if there's any other. I mean, to give a little more background, you've got a lot of history. I mean, you went to college and played lacrosse, so you've got a very athletic background. You could say I do too, but you've got a background in athletics of being good. I've got a background in athletics of trying, never being good at any of them. I think
that's what's cool and different about us is that we're not the normal guys. I feel like that read fantasy. I mean, I know you're still more getting into it, but I don't know. Like, reading is cool, dude, and that's what sucks, dude, is that basically, I know you have more friends than I do.
I'm
actually
than
read. Yeah.
Just well, not there.
But like, I mean, it's just, if anything, I'm trying to get more people to read because I know some of these books are big and like they look intimidating, but if people can really get into reading, like, it's just so much fun, dude. It's so engaging. I feel smarter, and it's like one of those things where, like, if you binge watch a show, sometimes you're like, oh, did I just wasted a day? Whereas, like, if I spend all day reading, I don't feel the same way, even though it's the same type of fix. You're getting the same escape of, like, trying to figure out what's going on. Like, I mean, it's the same type of thing, and if anything, it's better. It is better. Like,
and I'm really glad you said that. Yeah, because that is important. We have talked, and it's important to say in this video, we have talked about like what are our goals or what is our purpose, and our main purpose in this is because we have fun, because we like reading. But I do feel like a secondary goal, like if we could have anything, would be that from this, like, other people, even if they already do read, that other people find interest in a lot of the things that we do. Because whether it's the nonfiction we talk about that's like super important to the real world, or if it's fantasy, I feel like no matter what it is, and this isn't like, this doesn't have like a political meaning or like anything like that, but I feel like it is just so important, and it would make the world, people are better when they read.
Yeah.
In any way, even if you're reading fantasy, even if you're reading romance novels, you're reading YA, whatever it is, it is going to make your brain more efficient. And it cannot be anything but good for the world if we are all running more efficiently. I think that's a big goal of ours, is to get people to read more, or if not that, get people who already read to maybe read some of the stuff that we're interested in and have some ongoing conversations about what we learn, what it means. Because I think, again, in both nonfiction and fiction, there is a lot you can take away just about humanity, about the way we think, about the way we react to things. And especially in nonfiction, how we got where we are. And that's the big thing. Another big thing for history is just, how did we get here? And I think that's good on you and I.
You guys have any questions about us?
Yeah. Again, we'll
do more stuff too, where we'll talk more than, I guess, probably about books. I'm sure, of like shows, and just give opinions and stuff. I mean, it's almost impossible for me not to give my opinion.
We're pretty opinionated guys. So, again, if you want to know more about us, you can just Google Casey Affleck, Ben Affleck. You can find stuff about us all over the internet.
Exactly.
So, okay, that's your host. My real name is Jesse. His real name is Andrew. And that is your host of It's Lit Book Reviews. It is literature.
It's lit. Yeah, I hope people get that.
Yeah, well, if you don't, it means it is literature.
It's like a funny, we're
honestly, the fact that we just explained it took away.
We should never explained it. I'll cut this. I'll blur it all.
I'm just kidding. What are they